Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Tons of Productions podcast on this Monday, August 12th, 2019. Today, I have an interview with Maya Bankovic. She is a cinematographer and a director of photography of many different productions, like music videos and commercials and documentaries was her main thing. She also worked on the production Working Moms, which you can see on Netflix right now, and has currently a drama that is in the Toronto International Film Festival, and it's called Easyland. So this is a really good interview, and I'm really excited because this is my first time I've talked to someone that is not on the Vancouver film industry. She's out of Toronto. So anyway, here you go. Here is Maya Bankovic. You are listening to the Tons of Productions podcast. Start speeding. Here we go. Hello, Maya. How are you?
Hi. I'm good, thank you. How are you doing?
I am fantastic. Thank you for joining me on the Tons Productions podcast here. I am, like I've said before, am intrigued in all people in film and doing all different jobs. And I had worked on set for a lot of years. And in that time, I had never met a female cinematographer, DP, director of photography.
Hmm. I
And
don't I don't doubt it.
yeah, no, in the indie world, I had met, I think, women doing pretty well every other job. But that seemed to be the one that I had never met before. And so I went online and did some research and I came across you. And I thank you so much for having this talk with me.
Oh, thanks for having me. It's gonna be fun.
Yeah, for sure. So when I usually start these, I start by asking the person I'm talking to where they were born and where they started their journey.
Okay, well, I was born in Toronto,
Oh.
Canada, which is also where I started my filmmaking journey and also where I still live.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been a really good hub. Also just kind of like a nice place to build a community. So for now it's still my base.
Nice. Nice. Yeah, I'm from London, Ontario, actually.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Yeah.
And then you went out west.
Yeah, I love it out here. I moved out here in the 90s. So,
Yeah,
and
it's beautiful.
there's lots of film here too. So, and a lot in Toronto, I take it.
There is. Toronto's having like a moment that's a bit similar maybe to what happens out in Vancouver, where there's a lot of US shows here now, which I know has been the case out there for a very long time, but we're seeing that happening more in Ontario now. But the cool thing is that they're interested in hiring Canadian keys, which was kind of rare until recently.
Yeah, it seems well, there's so much content.
Exactly.
So, and a lot of
Yeah.
Canadians are really learning the craft and coming into their own. I mean, it's been years now that we've been doing stuff for the States, and it's improved all the Canadian network or shows too.
Oh, totally. The level of skill you get, amongst all types of professionals in the film industry here is astounding.
Hmm. So, did you go to film school?
Yes, yeah, I did. I went to York University. They were offering a 4-year BFA program, and I really wanted to go to that school particularly because um, I also wanted to do a double major. So I liked their anthropology department. Most of my courses in anthropology are also around like media and representation. But the film production program was cool because it was focused on narrative fiction, but also a very, very heavy experimental film influence going on there too, as well as documentary. And they sort of like equally weighed those three genres and gave them all, a lot of significance and importance.
Right.
So that seemed like the place where I wanted to go. That's
N-
what I did. It
nice.
was
And,
fun.
and did you
Yeah.
know you wanted to get into camera and cinematography when you started, or what were you thinking?
Yeah. I remember during the interview to get into school, the prof's eyes like lit up when I said I wanted to become a cinematographer because I think they're just, typically they have like one 17 or 18-year-old after another declaring that they want to be a director, and then finally there's this person who says cinematographer. And
Yeah,
the reason I
exactly.
knew that already was because to me, like, camera work was filmmaking. It was directing. I didn't realize how much directing was about, actors, which is kind of funny to
Yes.
say. But to me, I really, really thought it was about like shots, pacing things tonally, coming up with like a cinematic visual language for the edit. Like that's the kind of stuff I wanted to do. So when I learned about cinematography as a profession, I was like, oh, well, this is perfect for me because I don't know, I'm still not in a place really where I would want to focus solely all day on, workshopping stuff with actors, although maybe one day that might happen. But I really just wanted to focus on what the camera was doing.
Yeah, and that seems to be the both sides of a filmmaking for sure. I think a lot of people get in and think, oh, they want to be a director, but they don't realize they want to be a DP. They want to be a cinematographer instead. They just think that it's all one and you're in charge of everything. But really, being a cinematographer is it's a total job unto itself within the set, and it is more important than I think people realize.
Totally. Yeah. And it's like a really beautiful profession. Um, there's so much going on in a cinematographer's head with each setup, like math, aesthetics, sensitivity towards the people around you, sensitivity to the material. Like you're just doing all these like multiple processes at the same time. It's yeah, for me it's like a perfect storm of all the things I want to be focusing my attention on. And I was really, really just like so pleased when I learned that that was its own thing. And then also to be a supportive role to a director is a lovely thing too. It really suits my personality to sort of like hear what a director wants and then expand on it, or really just try to nail it, and yeah, and ideally even elevate beyond the initial plan. And to give them that space to really just do their thing with the actors is very satisfying, knowing that the image is taken care of.
Well, and yeah, that's it. If you trust your DP, like my independence that I did myself, I use the same DP every time because I kind of built a relationship with him, Byron
Hmm.
Cotman, and he was so good and he helped me out in so many ways because I was new to film. I didn't know, and he's like, "Oh, if you do this and you do that," and he showed me a whole bunch of stuff and made it so much better. And then
Yeah.
that made me feel confident, and I could deal with the actors and the actual story and the creative part of the production instead of just dealing with the actual logistics of lights and
Oh, totally.
setups and camera setups and all that.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's really the dream scenario. You find that one person and you can work with them repeatedly. Sometimes maybe schedules conflict, and I'm in a situation where these days where, directors I've worked with are branching out to other people because I'm not always available, or other people they work with aren't available. And it's nice because it actually expands the network. We know whose work complements each other's in the same way. We're all sort of in the same sort of community, but with that shorthand in mind, or yeah, it's really important. It's really important to have that sort of smaller kind of family of collaborators around.
Oh, it is for sure, and there's a lot more people that are that hardworking, dynamic than people realize. Like when I first got into film, and then I started doing this, I was introduced to more and more people who not only knew what they were doing, but just never wavered. Just put out material and were sought after more
Hmm.
than them looking for a job. If you're really good at your job, then people are coming to you and they want to hire
Yeah,
you. And then if you're already hired by someone else, they need a DP or they need a art director or someone who's high up that's really good.
that's really the ideal way to do it, and the only way to really kind of set those wheels in motion is to be generating your own work with your friends or whoever, or even solo if you can, if you have the skill set to do it all from start to finish. But that way you're kind of in the headspace that the work is plentiful because it's coming from your own mind and whatever equipment you can get your hands on. And um, after that, you're not really worrying about who's knocking on your door because you're just too busy doing your own thing anyway. And
Right.
lo and behold, out there, people are seeing your stuff, and so they will call.
Oh yeah, no, and then eventually you get known and your reputation gets big.
Yeah.
So what I was going to ask you, what I was really curious about was you starting in the camera world, because I know guys who were camera assistants that couldn't handle it because they were so mean. But that's here, right? The people were so mean to them, and they were like, "I'm not doing camera because this department's really hardcore," and they couldn't handle it. And
Oh, you mean like in Vancouver?
in Vancouver, I don't know what it's
Yeah, I've
like
heard that.
in Toronto, and I'm not saying because you're a woman or anything. I'm just wondering, is it really as harsh as I've heard?
The union world is new to me because I had to join only 3 years ago, and I've been doing this for more like 12 years, but independent stuff. And I've been hearing a lot of stories about that. Yeah, definitely like hazing and stuff, and just
Being
yeah, making
mean,
people
yeah.
feel like the new kid on the block and green, and it just that general kind of bad vibes thing. Like I don't know why people think that's the way to train someone. Like I don't know, it's not really my sort of management style. The thing is
Yeah.
like when you're a DP, you are a manager too, so I've sort of had to learn how to do that. That's part of it. It's not just about cool shots. It's like you're really juggling interpersonal stuff. You're kind of your own HR department. So I hear a lot of these stories, you know.
Oh yeah, it exists in now actually all departments. I mean, I have ADs that are mean to PAs, and they were PAs for years. And you're like,
Yeah.
okay, you're in the same union, you're together. Why are you hazing this person, this poor 20-year-old standing there
It's
like,
awful. It's really
oh, it's
awful.
horrible. Um,
And I don't really believe filmmaking needs to be torturous like that.
right.
Like we all kind of got into this because we thought it would be fun or we had something to say, but ideally it was supposed to be collaborative and fun, I thought. Some people get into it for money, I suppose. But there's this attitude that it's like boot camp or like the military or something. And it's like it couldn't be further from combat, guys. Like why are we
Yeah,
using this kind of language, you know?
I know. And why were we forcing people to endure this physical demanding work always, like just well, being locations, standing up for hours at a time, or that kind of
Yeah,
thing, having to have like actual union rules to tell them to feed people and stuff.
I know.
That's too much
It's
for me.
bad.
Yeah, it can be. I've been on sweetheart shows though. I'm gonna say I've been
I've
on.
been lucky as well. Like
Yeah.
a lot of the independent productions in Toronto have modeled themselves for many years now after like union regulations, which is very good because these are like young independent producers who don't want to tarnish their own name and they want to treat people properly, and that's that spirit of community.
And
That I was
like
talking about. They want to maintain that.
meal penalties and stuff
Um,
like that are for a reason too. It's not just because
mhm,
to save money. It's because of it's human rights kind of thing.
exactly. But ironically, the larger shows that have been coming to town, I'm hearing awful stories about them because they have all the money in the world to throw at problems or to have keep people for 18 hours or whatever with
Right.
little to no turnaround time. So there's all kinds of weird stuff going on we're seeing, I think, in this age of streaming and content. So yeah, something to watch for.
Oh yeah, no, it's really big out here now. They have Apple and Netflix and Amazon Prime's filming here, and all the streaming things, and then on top of that, um, all the shows. So, and I'm sure Toronto was just like busting at the seams too, just like here.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow. So I
Interesting.
noticed when you first started doing stuff, you were doing a lot of shorts and a lot of what, music videos and stuff.
I would do music videos occasionally for like friends.
Okay.
But I would say I think the stuff that sort of maybe put me on the festival circuit more were short films and documentaries.
Yeah, there's a
That
lot
was
of
sort of
documentaries you've done.
yeah.
And that's your sweet spot.
It isn't as much anymore. Like I haven't really done a feature length doc in a couple of years,
Oh, okay.
but it's a different lifestyle. I regret sometimes that it's not a larger part of my life anymore because they're just really educational experiences. They're very like spiritually fulfilling experiences. Typically, they're really smart films, and the places you go and the access you get, it's just a bit mind blowing sometimes.
Oh, I bet.
But a
Yeah.
documentary can, yeah, kind of open your mind too. So,
And you're not dealing with the crew like you are with, say, Working Moms, or like actual TV series shows where you're dealing with 100 people around you all the time, right?
Yeah, exactly. Dock is like you have like six people in a car and like some local people helping out and a translator or something. And there's like a very small unit. Um,
Which is great.
it's great. It's a whole other beast. It's almost like it's funny that they're kind of considered the same job, but they're actually very the process is so completely different.
Yeah, but I think every one of those is like different, like the MOWs, movie of the weeks, or commercials or music videos. Their own entity. They're their own animal and are done in a certain way.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. I
um,
never really got into the big like studio music videos though. Like a
okay,
little bit, but not really. Yeah,
right,
that would
okay,
have been fun.
and
Mhm.
commercials.
Commercials I do a lot more now.
Okay,
I've learned how to really embrace them. I don't know. It's just like didn't have it on my radar. A lot of, especially nowadays, like a lot of young DPs are really gunning for that sector of the industry. It was like totally not even on my radar at all. It wasn't like what I believed I'd like kind of honed my craft around, like in that direction. I wasn't really investing in that way, like creatively. But these like amazing agents at Mantle in Toronto, it's a small sort of boutique agency. They thought I'd fit in with their roster, and they were like, let's just try this. I was like, okay, if you guys think there's something here to sell and to pitch, let's try it. And so that
nice.
was kind of like a serious blessing. Like that was kind of amazing because it really opened my eyes to how much fun commercials can be because you're dealing with a whole new set of parameters. You know, for each one, it's very specific, and you can play around with like vintage lenses or diopters or and how to up the visuals on something, you know, more long form. Thanks to them, they're just
Nice.
really fun. They're a fun way to also play around with like color and color grading, again, without having to like commit 90 minutes to it. They're just 30-second spots, and it's a ton of fun.
Oh yeah, my buddy who's a DP, he said that his favorite thing is car commercials.
Oh yeah.
That's his favorite out of everything he's ever done. But I guess just because the
That's a really sought
experimental,
after. Hmm.
yeah. Just because you like deal with a lot of like drones and that kind of thing, and do some really cool shots, a big, wide, huge shots and stuff.
Yeah, and lighting cars is like its own beast too. Like there's the people commercials are so specific too, because like if they're like this is all going to be macro close-ups of like a fingertip, they want to already see that you've done like macro close-ups of fingertips.
Ah,
So like if you want to get into cars, you have to like be shooting cars and lighting cars. Everything's very specific, and yeah, there's a lot of like kind of trust that has to go into that. You know, you've already done it, you already know what you're doing, rather than like that you're learning on the job too much. You know, like
right. So if you
it's a bit
never
like that with reels too. They kind of already want to see some of their movie already in your reel.
gotcha.
If that
So
makes sense.
if you were doing an indie that had a car in there and you could cut it so it looked like a
Yeah,
car commercial, it might bode well for you if you applied for a job doing a
yeah,
car
exactly.
commercial.
Because they'll, yeah, especially if you have like a friend who's a director who's being put forward and they really want to bring you on, they'll say, do you have any cars to show them? Just any screen grabs even of cars, just so they can present you to the client, you know, so that they can trust that you know how to do cars. I don't shoot cars, but and a lot of people who want to shoot cars that I know, they're like actively out there learning how to light cars and do all that.
Hmm, that's
Yeah, very
wild.
specific stuff. Yeah. Or you know, there's like the person who does slow motion beverage pours and really knows how to shoot
Okay.
bubbles. You know,
Right.
there's a
So
lot of specialization in commercials for sure.
that's their expertise or whatever.
Yeah,
Or dealing with animals or dealing with certain things.
exactly. Yeah,
Nice. So
yeah.
when you started doing all this camera work and whatever, it was fine for you, and you had no problems as far as because it was a lot of this indie world, a lot of these shorts
Oh
that you're
yeah.
doing. Okay.
Oh yeah, yeah, entirely, entirely. The bigger stuff's more in recent years, like the past 5 years or so. And even then, I'm like still sort of 1 foot in and 1 foot out of the indie world all the time. I have a feature at TIFF this year called Easyland, and it's a film that was made for like under $200,000 or something
Wow.
around there. So just because I've done like 3 seasons of a big network show, it doesn't mean you close the door and you only exist in that world anymore. I think if you want to keep your life kind of interesting, the indie world is where you can find a lot of, first of all, a lot of the better scripts. because they're
Right.
not really beholden to, investors wanting to like change things around or make things more palatable. You get a lot more like expressive stuff in the independent world.
Yeah, there's no
So that's where I spent most of my time for 10 years, and will probably continue to do so for a while.
because you like it, right?
Yeah, I like it. And it was also like I didn't come up through the union. Like I didn't become a camera assistant with the intention to like sort of climb the ranks through the union. And a lot of that was because it wasn't like my passion was to just work on film sets. I wanted to be like involved in filmmaking more
Right.
in a more firsthand way. Like I wanted to be the one shooting the movies, basically. So in order to do that, I had to just shoot independent movies.
Yeah, exactly. You had to build up your resume in order to land big shows or whatever. So, how did you get Working Moms?
They were actually looking in the independent world because they were also keen on like hiring a woman.
Hmm.
At the time, I think there were maybe like, I'd say maybe like a dozen at the very most women in Canada working as DPs. There are more now, like for sure, but
Yeah,
I don't know. Like
but
I
like you
think
were
that
saying
was
before,
around.
it was 5%.
Yeah, it's like the stats are like 5% of working cinematographers are identify as women. But the thing is the thing with those stats is like they really only take from lists that they can find. But there are more women than that, I believe. We're still like largely underrepresented, but you can't really account for like all the women out there in the independent world. Like there's no union list or any guild that'll compile those names, you know?
Right.
So these producers were smart because they knew that, and they were like, okay, well the list has maybe a couple women on it, but certainly Canada has more than that. So let's
Yeah.
look in the independent world. And one of the directors, Elisa Young, had put forward a bunch of names. She works with a lot of women, and I was one of them, I guess. And they heard my name from a couple sources, and it was kind of a dream come true because I was like, maybe one day a union show will come along and require me to join, and I'll get to work at that next sort of level and scale. But if it doesn't, I'm fine with that. Like I'd made peace with the fact that my life would be sort of the more independent world, and it was good stuff too. Like the films I was doing were going to very good film festivals. Some National Film Board projects were making the rounds. We'd gone to Sundance with one of them, so I kind of had made peace with the notion that that might be it. But
Right.
I'm really glad I didn't, you know,
Shut the
uh,
door or whatever.
yeah, shut the door because you got to just kind of be open to those surprises. Like when they called, I was like, "What, me, really?" And it's kind of like the commercial thing too, where it was like TV. Like, what have I put out there that indicates that I can shoot a two-camera television show? Like nothing.
Right.
But they liked the sort of looser style in my that they saw in my reel, like the naturalism, because I don't tend to really. I guess thus far my style's been more sort of camera centric, like what can the camera do or how far can I take a shot before it has to cut and like all these sort of looser things rather than like having like a signature lighting style, let's say.
Right.
So that's really what they wanted for the show, like naturalistic lighting, nice kind of soft, pleasing colors, and then like interesting ways to use the camera, which is also something you pick up from documentary shooting, where sometimes something's happening and you just have to like really quickly find an interesting frame and hold it, and that's what you're committing to. So obviously there's more thought than that can go into a television show, but
Right.
having those instincts certainly help because a TV show moves really fast.
Oh yeah, and I watched a few. I watched 2 episodes last night with my wife. I was like, "This
Hmm.
is on Netflix! Oh my god!" All
Yeah,
excited to
yeah,
watch whatever. And I'm watching it, and that makes a lot of sense as far as yeah, your history of documentary lighting and stuff. I never even thought there was a difference, or different styles and stuff. And yeah, now that I
yeah.
think about it, it was great. I only watched
Thank
two
you.
episodes, but I loved it, and um, it
Thanks.
it was lit really good. I went to a couple different talks from DPs and cinematographers, and Andrew Lisney was one, and he
Hmm.
is did all the Lord of the Rings, and
That's awesome.
I think he did The Hobbit, and he did King Kong, and he did Babe. He did a bunch of big movies, and so I volunteered as a PA to go his talk and
Mm-hmm.
everyone else paid $100 to go to hear him. But I set up chairs and I set up some books, and I got to hear for free, even though that wasn't my thing, and I'm not in my department. But it was interesting.
Yeah.
And so now I know what to look for because of his talk. Now I
Yeah.
know, and my friend Byron as well, who's a DP. He really, with my own indies, he showed me a bunch of different things that I never noticed before, and I guess the general public wouldn't have any idea of, like when the length goes for a cut. Say, I'll notice that now. I'll go, holy, that cut wasn't forever. They went through this and that and this and that, but my wife or regular people don't notice it as much.
Yeah. I
They're
feel a
not as
little bit like,
impressed anyway.
yeah, there's little things filmmakers and nowadays TV makers will do that are a little bit like for their people. And they know a lot of TV watchers is going to go over their head. But for the people who are watching for that kind of stuff, it's like really impressive. Like, and unassuming sometimes. Like that show, Marvelous Miss Maisel. I don't know if you
Oh, I
saw that one at
loved.
all.
I
With
watched
Nancy
all of
Ian.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so great. And they do so many really technical, really, really difficult, impressive things. Like a lot of long takes, Steadicam shots that last a very long time, but they're not flashy at all. So it's to my mind, that's like the perfect way to use a long take, where you're just so immersed in the story that you don't really realize there haven't been cuts, but you feel the momentum of the scenario, and it's very unconscious.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense because of stand up. I think when you're running through a story, you can't really, and you hold one position for a long time. It's really impressive, but that's only to film people, like you say. It's like
Yeah,
if my friend
yeah,
Byron or someone saw it, they'd be like, wow, that's wicked. Like,
yeah.
oh.
It's like an Easter egg for your people.
Well, I find that actually working in film for that length of time, when I watch movies, if I'm taking out of the story at all from the acting or from the writing or anything, then I start picking apart the location and the background and the whatever, and I
Yeah.
kind of out of the story, right? But that's just because I've worked in film for so long. So
I wish, because you come from a locations background, you said, right?
right.
I really wish more locations people understood it as an art form, which it is one. Wouldn't you say? I
Well,
can't start to shoot a scene nicely or beautifully until the location has something to it. And so
right.
often we're left with sort of just, I don't know, whatever was available or whatever. But then there's people out there that'll like really find something with character or history, or where there's like nuance to it, or light comes in a nice way. And sometimes I think like, oh man, in another life I would have become a locations person. This seems
Well,
really fun.
I saw some really cool shit as a location person too. I
Yeah.
worked on Supernatural for a couple years, and
Mhm.
some of the stuff I saw in that was just so amazing and beautiful. They had two guys from New Zealand that trained horses and did all this stuff for this gag they were doing, and it was just, to me, mind blowing, especially from a person who's never been in film before, and you're right there and watching and responsible for these heavy duty people. It's really wild.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, you
But
just kind of get access to weird corners of the world.
it is, and your documentary, same thing. You must have been flying all over the place for it.
Yes, I definitely got to see some cool stuff, but it did come to a point too where I was like, I would love to see more of the world without hauling just like a ton of gear around.
Yeah,
So maybe I need
actual
to figure out another
vacation
way to make
touring.
money and travel for
Yeah.
leisure.
Where's the most exotic place you've filmed?
Some crazy stuff we did down in like Ecuador and in the Amazon a couple years ago
Oh
for
wow.
a German broadcaster was doing a 12-part documentary series about the equator. And it was very grueling, but very, very beautiful. But it's one of those things where it's like when you catch yourself when you find yourself walking backwards on the edge of like a cliff and the path is only like 2 feet wide, and
Yeah.
you kind of know in your heart of hearts they're not even going to use the shot. And it's like, what are we doing? What are
Yeah.
we doing right now?
I'm risking my
So,
life.
yeah, it's like it got to the point where I'm like, is this documentary worth dying for? Because I might. Because like documentary shooting is so dangerous. And my colleague who was there with me, we were both shooting together and doing some like two camera stuff, and he was doing a lot of like the macro stuff and some drone things. And he had a newborn baby at home, and we were just like, maybe it was a moment of reflection, like we need to maybe reassess our path
Yeah.
moving forward. But it was amazing. So I went back the next year with a friend for a vacation to the Amazon, because I knew I loved it, and I was like, I want to go there and just like enjoy it and not have to worry about, falling off the cliff or the
Yeah.
humidity damaging the camera or like any of that.
Well, it must be it must have felt like war correspondence feel almost because you're in the middle of like really crazy stuff with gear. You gotta
Yeah,
record it, make sure this card gets uploaded.
exactly.
Like wow,
Yeah.
it's
When you're working off solar panels in the middle of nowhere, sometimes like hoping the laptop will hold out.
yeah,
And also like
exactly.
really, difficult things to witness too. Like we visited refugee camps in Greece at the port where thousands of Syrian refugees were in limbo for a film for the NFB a few years
Wow.
ago, and like shooting with young children in like a tent city where people were just really, really like stuck in a purgatory of sorts. No end in sight to when this paperwork would be sorted for them, if ever.
Oh
And
my God.
and that's one of those scenarios where people were kind of coming to us and telling us like and thanking us for being there because they were just desperate for people on the outside to see what was going on.
Hmm.
So it's a real privilege and it's a huge responsibility too to do some form of documentary work. And in those moments, you kind of, I mean, I don't know, it's kind of weird, but I have this like ability to a little bit disconnect in order to get the footage because it's so important to.
Yeah,
But
it's
then
like
it'll hit me later.
it's like a doctor separating when they're doing surgery and not having
Yeah, you kind of
emotion
have
about the
to.
person and being sad. They're just doing their job. But
Hmm.
wow,
But
that's
in order to do it properly and to do it justice, you really have to. Like you have to understand the gravity of it intellectually, but you can't you can't like lose yourself to it. It's not fair to. You have to just shoot it.
yeah.
So all of that stuff, it was getting to me a little bit, and there are reasons why I've kind of scaled back on the doc stuff. But I don't also want to just shy away from it forever either.
Yeah, just okay, yeah. Well, if you're constantly faced with that kind of tragedy and that kind of stuff, it's got to scar you. It's got to affect you. I mean,
It's going to affect you, and at the end of the day, a movie can help spread awareness, but you feel helpless too.
yeah.
Yeah. It's a
Wow.
very different world than doing, working in like the show business side of things. It's funny because they're both you use cameras, but it's a very different
Well,
thing.
that's kind of like news. It's kind of like a news correspondent, even though it's a documentary. It's the same sort of thing. When you watch
Hmm.
Vice or you watch any of those shows that are really, they're called documentaries, but really, it's giving you the news of places that regular media doesn't go,
Yeah,
which is wild.
totally.
So on a happier subject, where was Working Moms filmed? Was that in Canada?
Yes, it's all in Toronto.
Okay.
And they wanted to shoot it as Toronto, which is rare and special. And I was so happy to do that. It's my city, and I wanted to show it off in a way that I see it. But also, the showrunners, the creators are American, so they were bringing a lot to the table in terms of like what they thought Toronto was with fresh eyes.
Ah,
There's
okay.
a lot of visuals in the show, like little interstitial pieces and stuff. So it was a really cool opportunity for me to be like, because of those things, they would send us out almost like as like a splinter second unit, me and like the camera team,
Right.
without So anyway, um, and so it was really like a fun opportunity to be like, okay, like how do I want to like show this place off, this place that I really care about, and it's for a national audience, and now it's for an international audience. My family in France is watching it on Netflix, and it's like, oh, it's cool. They get to see my city through my eyes.
Yeah.
And that's pretty fun. It's kind of like a cool chance and it's like, because it's not just beauty shots either. Like they just kind of really wanted to get into like the character of the city.
Yeah, well, it is a change too from what you're used to shooting, right? Like
Yeah,
from the documentary or being all over the place and having to do
totally.
this. It's
Yeah.
really cool actually because it's a different dynamic.
Yeah, because it's like, okay, now how do I take that same sort of like exploratory eye and like turn it on my own city as if it's brand new,
Right.
which can be hard to do. Like it's oftentimes easier to go into a new place and be really inspired, but in order to like stay in one spot and continually find the new and the interesting I think it takes more effort, but you kind of go deeper. Like I felt like I kind of almost went deeper with Toronto in those years.
Well, that's I bring it up again, but when I worked on Supernatural, the DP of that show, it's unbelievable that that's a road show and comes up with
Hmm.
different scenarios for every different episode. We're talking what's it, 14 years it's been going, and
Wow.
23
Okay.
episodes a season. So
Wow.
that you have to come up with so many different things. It's unbelievable.
You do, and because you gotta also stay excited too,
Yeah.
about your own work and bring something new to the table without totally changing up the show because that's got to be consistent. And but yeah, you got to keep yourself interested too.
Do you always work with the same team? Like, do you have people that you
Well, the
prefer?
gaffer, season one gaffer, Laureen Ruddick, she wasn't able to return the second season because she had a different show to do, but she knew that ahead of time, and she had kind of set me up with Blaine Badge, who is like, he works with me as gaffer on everything since then, because she was just really smart about knowing we'd be a good match.
Nice.
He's so wonderful as a gaffer, but also just as like a human being. And he's so like moral and just and treats people so well and so fairly. He works so hard. He's just got a great eye. So I've been lucky to work with him on all kinds of things.
Nice.
But the camera team, one of our operators, Brad Herboska, was there for all three seasons that I shot, but since then has moved on to other things. I'm actually not shooting the fourth season. I was
Okay.
set to do another feature this summer, so someone else has taken over the show. And
Okay.
I've gone in and seen the set and stuff, and it's really cool to see, to see it continuing in motion.
Oh yeah.
Um, Although it was like a very difficult decision, but yeah, for the most part, people come and go. It's kind of like a circus, right? This industry, like when it comes to television, it's sort of like people go where the contracts are and stuff. So a lot of familiar faces, but there would always be a few new people kind of coming, kind of switching out.
Oh yeah, and it's almost like a big family because there's so many times where I work with someone and then don't see him for 5 6 years, and then you work close with them again for a
Yeah,
year.
for sure.
So
Yeah.
that happens a lot of times. And I've worked with a few people from Toronto, and I know
Mhm.
people from here who went to Toronto to work. So it goes back and forth. And then I think Winnipeg and Calgary and Edmonton, they all have substantial filming going on, I would imagine.
Yeah. Yeah.
But Toronto and Vancouver are the big ones, right?
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
it's a weird thing with like I'm just like a really big supporter of the idea that people's careers should really be up to them and their paths should be their own. But it's weird. Like I don't yeah, just your question about if it's the same crew. I think it's yeah, it's just it's funny. A lot of people a lot of DPs will sort of even insist that their ACs kind of follow them from job to job, and it's almost like it can be kind of like a golden handcuff scenario for some crew members out there, and a DP keeps them busy, but there's maybe other stuff out there they want to explore, or even just time off and travel and other things they want to do.
oh, that's so funny you say that because I have a filmmaker here who told me about the golden handcuffs. I'm like, what are you talking about? And
Yeah.
he'd give me the whole theory about the golden handcuffs. And there's so many people that stick in the same crew here and travel.
Uh-huh.
Like okay, Supernatural. Most of those people have been there since day one, 14 years, right? Never
Wow.
changed at
Yeah.
all. I worked on was a Stargate Atlantis. That was my first show call. That was way back in the day, and some of those people when I started had been there 11 years because they worked on SG1, and they just continued and continued. The crafty
Hmm.
guy, that all these people, I was like, what?
That's
And
so nuts.
so you get those big shows. A lot of people will stay there forever.
I guess like what didn't occur to me like ever before, because I was so used to just really serious freelance like grind, contract to contract, before I entered the TV landscape, was that it really is like if you consider it just like your job,
Right.
like that particular show is the job you go to
Yeah.
year after year, almost like how a person works for like Microsoft or something.
Yeah.
There's no real reason for a lot of people to switch it up unless they're restless or something.
Well, one of the painters on that show called it a mortgage burner. And I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, well, I just have endless work. It didn't matter. I could just pay off
Yeah,
a house from this show.
exactly.
And I'm like,
Yeah, yeah,
what?
yeah.
So,
Yeah,
it,
yeah.
it's amazing all the different departments. How many people are antsy filmmakers and want to get out there and do stuff. And there's other people that are just whatever. Like there's some stand-ins. Yeah, 8 years. What?
Totally.
Like I thought you want to be an actor. I thought you want to do something,
Yeah.
Oh no, stand in for 8 years? Wow. But he made so much money. That's
And I will say, doing like seasons of TV is the sort of regularity of it is kind of, I kind of felt pretty healthy doing it.
right.
Like not switching my brain from one project to the next. It has to have a totally different look, or it's in a totally different city with a totally different crew. Like,
You feel more relaxed.
yeah, and you're like, hey everyone, I'm just doing this for the next 4 months, and your
So your
schedule is
job,
the same.
well, it becomes easier, is what you're saying? Like when you do the
Yeah,
same
even
thing?
just like
Yeah.
even like my brain was able to focus, and my lifestyle kind of leveled out.
Hmm.
It's like it felt sort of somehow healthier to, in a way, because it was just less hustle.
And,
So I can understand why people would do that.
but now you're back hustling. You're flying
I'm back
around.
hustling, and I'm already like, oh no, what do I do?
Nice.
There's pros and cons.
Well, hey, no, if you go back and forth, that's great. It's a good mix.
Yeah, I
So
think so.
you don't beat yourself up, because I know it can be stressful in certain situations. I've never done documentary, but I got a lot of friends that have traveled around doing that, and I couldn't imagine doing that exclusively, like the Vice guys or whatever, doing that all the time for years. Oh my God.
Oh, and the contracts at some of those companies are like, they know exactly what kind of situations their crews are getting into, the kind of stuff you have to sign your life away to. It's like crazy. But they're not all like that. Like I'm working on a series with Netflix right now about pop music, and it's a documentary series, and I'm just kind of in and out of it between, and I'm kind of doing commercials and other things. And, sometimes we'll go to Los Angeles and it's like a 2-hour day.
Right.
And then we have the rest of the day to have a nice lunch or go to a pool. It's like very strange. It's very strange.
Well, no, but that's
It's
great.
not all like war zones. Yeah.
Constant. Yeah. Constant have to deal with stuff.
Yeah.
Nice. Do you have any advice for people who are getting into film that are just starting out? Because I got a buddy who has an 11-year-old daughter, and since she's listened to my podcast, she has really gotten into film and likes it a lot and wants to get involved. So not just for her,
that's great.
but for all these people who are just getting into film, because it can be at any age. It doesn't have to be a child.
Yeah. It really depends on what their goals are, but what I always say is if their goals are to do something more on the like above the line, or I mean I'm technically below the line, but like more in the sort of key creative roles, to just be doing that thing right away for no money budgets. If you can borrow a camera with a friend, if you can afford to do it, I don't even mean afford to pay for an expensive project. I mean, even just afford the time to do it. That's like a really, really good way to just get your work out there and continue building and expanding your network at film festivals and amongst other sort of more like artist or filmmaking communities, or maybe you have a web show idea and it won't put you out too much to do it like in your spare time. That's really the kind of stuff we were doing. There's the union route as well, and then people will make money kind of right away, and that's obviously important, especially when people go to film school and they have like student loans to pay off and all that kind of stuff. It's like really important to
they owe 50 grand, and yeah.
Exactly. Well, I would also say really just choose the city and not necessarily the expensive school. That's another thing.
Okay.
Like I have friends that went to very expensive schools in Los Angeles and New York, but who now say they could have easily just gone to like a less expensive school, but been in that city, knowing that they have like the sort of like the social skills or like the talent that they had. They could have interned at all the same companies and had their student visas just as easily, but for less money.
And not be in debt for whatever it is. Yeah.
For the rest of their lives. Yeah.
Right. I didn't go to
So
film
there's
school.
different ways. Sorry, you did not?
I didn't go to film school, no, and I have lots of friends that never did and learned on the set. So that can be done, but
Exactly.
anything technical as far as camera work or as far as sound or anything that's
for
real.
camera work, and I love to say this to young women who are interested, but really anyone who feels intimidated, but I hate to say it, but like there's something wrong with the way we like socialize. I mean, gender is like a whole other conversation, or maybe it's part of this conversation.
Right.
The way I see, young girls being discouraged, or not discouraged, but not actively encouraged the way boys are to just like play with toys that are a bit more complicated or that can come apart and be put back together. It's like it's so simple, but it goes back to like the earliest days of what we're giving young kids to like play around with and experiment with. And that persists through adulthood. Like, I teach a lot of workshops. I actually used to teach at a film school. I used to teach a documentary cinematography class for like about a couple of years. And without fail, anytime I do a workshop or anything, there's always a woman who will say to me, like, "Are you sure I'm not going to break it? If I touch this camera, I'm going to break it."
Ah.
And it's like, you won't. I promise you, you won't. These things are designed to be like, rigged on the hood of a car going 200
Yeah,
miles an
yeah.
hour
Yeah,
down the
yeah.
Pacific Coast Highway. Like, don't worry, you're not going to break it. You pressing record or changing the focus on the lens is what is meant to do. But there's like fear and stuff around technology, which, all you can really do about that is familiarize yourself with it. And it doesn't have to be the most expensive stuff. The best thing I did for myself was buy a video camera that was sophisticated enough that it had a lot of manual functions. So I could learn sort of the important variables in cinematography, like shutter,
Right.
frame rate, exposure, like aperture,
All
all
the
those things that
Yeah,
have to
all
work in
the pertinent
tandem.
things. Yeah.
Yeah, all the pertinent things. Depth of field it taught me by just playing around, because I was able to just walk around my room or like go out into like a field or go to the park just by myself. And I wouldn't even have to tape anything. I would just literally just be playing with the optics. And it really has to become like an instrument to you, an extension of your body, where you're not going to fear this thing. You can't fear it and have it serve you. It has to serve you.
Yeah, it's like an instrument.
Yeah.
It's a part of you, and um, yeah, well, and all of the once you get into and you're confident with it, then you realize every single year a new camera comes out, or new lenses, or new equipment, and
Yeah.
new little with has a little twist or a little thing to add, right?
Totally. I mean, I don't pay attention to that stuff until I need it too. And
Okay.
that's another thing. Like, some people are really on top of it, and I used to get intimidated by that notion that I was falling behind. But those people are genuinely passionate about that. I don't think it's that necessary to be spending all your time on forums or on the internet learning about what's happening, in Las Vegas every year, like NAB or something.
Well, no, but when you do a lot of these shows, when you show up, they already have cameras. It's not like you get to pick them, or do you order
True.
them?
Sometimes the production really dictates, it has to be
On
4K
Yeah,
or it
okay.
has to be 8K, so it has to be a red family camera, or we own the Alexa, or in the case of working moms, we had a dual record on Alexa Classics.
Hmm.
There's a lot of reasons why you often like don't get to choose it, but I don't know. I just feel like a lot of DPs I know, we kind of have our bag of tricks, and we'll make switches and changes with lenses maybe, but we're not necessarily spending all of our free time learning all the latest,
All the
reading up on
technical.
bit rates or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. The other thing was I had a first ADI interview, and he talked about he hates the movie, he called it,
Uh-huh.
and I was going to ask you, what is a movie? He said
It's
it's like a
it's like,
hula hoop with a camera in the center of it. That's how he described it. But I don't, I tried to look up online.
yeah, it's like a remote head system, and it's true. It kind of like sits in this thing that you hold out in front of you that looks kind of like a hula hoop.
Okay.
It's true, yeah. And you can just sort of like do remote head operations. A lot of people have used it to sort of replace Steadicam on like things that maybe the budget won't allow for a Steadicam operator. So there's a movie operator. I've used it on like cars and stuff, on like the
Okay.
hoods of cars. I've used it in some commercials. But yeah, it's sort of like, yeah, it's sort of like a remote head system. It's kind of, yeah.
Well, he says it's a pain because it's a long time to set up. If it doesn't work, then you just waste all that time.
Yeah.
And then he's like,
There have
ah.
been It's very true. Like, I won't. There have been times where a producer will say, "Can we just get that?" And I've like successfully managed to talk them out of it, because I'm like, the amount of time it'll take you to troubleshoot it
It just costs you
will
money.
kill your day. I've seen it.
Yeah.
Unless you bring it with an operator, like an owner operator who like knows it inside and out, then we're not wasting time. But if you want like me to operate it and you're just going to ship it over, don't bother. I can't. Some people can't. I'm just like, I don't want to spend the time that way. There's so many other ways we could be spending the time, you know?
Oh yeah, no,
Yeah.
one of the shorts I did, I used a Steadicam, and it was the coolest thing. I was like, oh my god, I'd film everything with Steadicam if I had the money.
Yeah, it's a beautiful look for yeah, I mean it never ceases to amaze me. Like it actually really makes me very emotional when I see a beautiful Steadicam shot coming alive. It's very
Yeah.
beautiful.
Oh yeah, music videos and stuff. I've seen it on. It's just really cool.
Yeah.
Hmm. Um.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you again. Is there anything you want to pitch? Any sort of projects you're working on or productions?
Well, we'll see what the future holds. If when is this going to air, you think? If anyone's around Toronto for TIFF, they can come check out Easyland. That's a very special passion project I shot last November
Oh,
for
okay.
Bankovic. She's the director,
Mm-hmm.
Canadian film. She actually is from Vancouver originally.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, she's living out here now, but she's maybe a bit nomadic. We'll see where the wind takes her next. But
This
that's
will be the 12th of August. That's when this will air.
oh great. Okay, 12th of August. So just enough time to come on down to the Toronto International Film Festival.
Oh, that's
And
so
other than
sweet.
that, I guess if they want to see more recent work of mine, Working Moms is on Netflix all over the world.
Nice. Yeah. No, there was a few. Yeah, I was looking at Netflix. I'm like, yeah, she's on there. That's so awesome. I feel so
Yeah,
excited. Well, thank
thank
you
you.
for sharing everything with me. I really enjoyed this talk. You're the first person I've talked to that is outside of Vancouver. I've
Oh, very cool.
I've
We're
just
nationwide now, so you have so much more.
yeah, exactly. Well,
Thank you.
thank you again for doing this. I really appreciate it, and I will talk to you soon.
Thanks. Thanks for asking me. Talk to
All
you
right.
soon.
Take care.
Bye bye.
Bye bye. That was great. Maya is so nice. Join me next Monday when I talk with Kendry Upton. She is the executive director of the Directors Guild of Canada. So take care, and I will talk to you next week. Bye bye.